One of my biggest pet peeves in the science fiction community is that a lot of us recommend brand new beginner sci-fi folks all of these top tier, highly complex, best of the best science fiction novels. While some readers could probably handle these when they're getting into science fiction, a lot of people want to be pulled in slowly. Most of us want to be seduced into the genre. Most of us want step by step. We want to flex those reading muscles, and we also want to learn how to process and understand some of those complex ideas, those philosophical meanderings. Also, we would like some space battles every now and then. Thank you very much. What I decided to do for you guys today is to focus on the kind of reader that is going to approach science fiction. And we want them to like science fiction, not get frustrated and throw the book across the room and never come back. I have made 6 tiers, 6 different kinds of readers. The first is preteen, which is 8 to 13 years old. The young adult section. Then we have new or occasional readers. Then we have the adult avid reader of classic or modern literature, but they haven't got quite into science fiction yet. And then we have the avid readers of fantasy. And finally, we have the science fiction fans already. Yeah, but usually they go to movies and TV, and they're just about ready to pick up a science fiction book. So to begin, preteen category. The first book that I'm going to recommend is definitely a classic. It is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. I definitely read this as a kid and will always remember the ant explanation for traveling through time. Definitely had a high impact on me as a kid, and I will hope has a high impact on anybody else who picks it up. There's also, in that same era, The Ear, the Eye, and the Arm by Nancy Farmer. This one takes place in Africa and is a little bit of a mystery. I definitely recommend this one as well. And then we have an oldie but a goodie, Have Spacesuit Will Travel by Robert Heinlein. This one was definitely intended for juvenile readers and is a very fun adventure standalone. Then we have a series that was published a little bit later by Margaret Haddix called Among the Hidden. This one is about population control and how people are not allowed to have third children, and there is a boy who is a third child that must remain hidden. This is a really good series and was fun and an adventure. Next and final is Garth Nix. Garth Nix wrote a couple of series for kids, but the standalone sci-fi is called Shade's Children. I would recommend going a little bit higher than 8 on this one, but if you want something that has a little bit of a magical twist, he also wrote the Seventh Tower series, which starts with the book The Fall, and this one has some dystopian themes, but just a little bit of magic. Our next category is the YA beginner category. So for this category, we have to start with Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This is a trilogy that is a definite dystopian with a little bit of a love triangle and was very good even as an adult reader. I thought it's definitely one that most people should like. Then we have the series that starts with Rot and Ruin by Jonathan Mayberry. This one is a zombie teen series book that has some mature themes in it, so definitely needs to be in the YA category. And then I would recommend the standalone Feed by M.T. Anderson. Just to kind of clarify, there is a book out there also entitled Feed by Mira Grant that is a zombie book. That is not what I'm talking about. Feed by M.T. Anderson is actually a dystopian, almost like a teen 1984, but a little bit more fun. I highly recommend the audio version of this one. And then the last one in this category is of course the classic Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I mean, there's so much VR in this book and aliens and everything that you want in a science fiction YA book. I have to recommend it. For our new or occasional readers, those folks that need to stretch their reading muscles, I wanted to recommend some page turners for y'all. I would start with something by Michael Crichton, specifically Prey. This one deals with nanotechnology and is definitely something that could potentially happen, so I would definitely recommend some sci-fi thrillers there. Other books I would recommend in this category would be something by Peter Clines. I went with the Book of the Fold, but anything that he writes would definitely be something that I would put here. I would also specifically recommend 1 Second After by William Forchner. This is a post-apocalyptic tale that is one that a bunch of senators have recommended and is a fun, good read. This is one that I got my dad started with. Then I would recommend the book Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I feel like this book just has everything that I love about science fiction. It has real science, it has a lot of humor, it has a lot of heartstrings, but it also has some good aliens, it has some epic drama and some good battle scenes. I mean, what's not to love? I'm a huge fan. I think everybody in every category should love this book. For the final book in this category, I would probably recommend the book Lock-In by John Scalzi. This one has to do with a pandemic that ruins the world, so enjoy that one. The next category is going to be avid adult readers of classic or modern literature. Remember that these are the folks that I think probably need a little bit more character development, but they have a lot of patience and they can get through a lot of stuff. The first book for them has to be Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This book makes every single person I know cry. It is spectacular and it deals a lot with intelligence. I will leave it there. Another really good book for this category is going to be The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula Le Guin. This one is also a novella, so if you're looking for something shorter, this is a really good one to start, and deals with a man who goes to his therapist and thinks that his dreams can change the future. Then we have the book Kindred by Octavia Butler. Really anything by Octavia Butler can go here, but Kindred in particular is a really good place to start. It's going to be a standalone, and it's about a black woman in the 70s who gets time travel back into the South during the time of the Civil War and slavery. Then we have the book Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I know I said I'm not going to recommend a whole lot of classics, but this one is something that especially the folks with classic literature love will definitely appreciate. It is very similar to the Canterbury Tales, except better. In my opinion, it's much better. I highly recommend this book. You will love it. And for the final book in this category, I would probably recommend The Sparrow by Mary Russell. This book has an incredible amount of characterization and character growth, but it takes quite a journey to get to the revelation at the end. And I think that for folks who really like classic or modern lit, this is the book to start for you. The next category, avid readers of adult fantasy. For the first book in this category, I would start by recommending A Memory Called Empire by Katie Martine. The world building in this book is just spectacular, and I think that fantasy readers will really love it. The next book that I would recommend is also a standalone book called Space Between Worlds. There is a multiple universe situation happening here, and it's still very character driven. I think this one is definitely a good one to recommend for fantasy folks. And then of course we have the ever recommended Red Rising series, which is very easy to recommend to fantasy folks because the very first book is almost exactly like a fantasy book, and then the second and the third books get a lot more heavy into science fiction. If you are looking for something that would be a really good taper, that is the series to go with. And then of course I have The Book of M by Peng Shepherd. This book has a little bit of, I'm going to call it a fantastical element in it, but it is definitely post-apocalyptic and it is really character heavy. So I highly recommend this book if that's something that is up your alley. And then the very last book that's probably on the challenge round for this one is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I think that if imagination and world building is what you're looking for, you can't get better than this book. It is spectacular, but it does take a lot of patience to get through it. You really don't start getting into the good parts until about halfway through the book. And the last category is for our sci-fi TV and movie fans who are ready to pick up some science fiction. I'm not gonna recommend to you all of the books of those movies and TV shows that you love. I'm gonna recommend to you some more action-packed but high complex ideas. So the first one I'm gonna recommend is The Light Brigade by Cameron Hurley. This one deals with military sci-fi and is very action-packed. I highly recommend it. It was such a good time. In that same vein, I would also recommend Velocity Weapon by Megan O'Keefe. I will tell you that this is a trilogy, although I would tell you to stop at the first book, but this first book has a lot of cool stuff to offer. There's some cool action, there's a lot of thought-provoking stuff that happens, a little bit of a twist in there. I'll leave it at that. Then I would also go ahead and recommend Project Hail Mary to these folks. I think that everyone will love Project Hail Mary, so I am double dipping for this category. And then I would add in here Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. I thought that this first book especially was very short, a very easy read. If you'd like to listen to it on audio, it's also an easy to find audiobook. I really liked it. I think it's a really good beginner sci-fi book if you're ready for some first alien contact. And then the last book I'm gonna recommend is a little bit unusual, and it is called Quality Land. This book is about how Amazon and YouTube algorithms take over the world, and it is very satirical. So you have to be ready for a humorous book that can't be taken too seriously, but has a lot of deeper themes. And that does it for my 6 tiers of beginners sci-fi. I hope you check out some of these books and let me know what you think. Until next time.